This podcast is made possible by the Chicago Institute for Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. Welcome to Rational Harm Reduction. My name is Jack Slimsky, and I am a peer recovery support specialist. And today I am speaking with Andrea Gregory Pain, the Executive Director of Moderation Management. Moderation Management was founded in 1994. And when it comes to alcohol problems, was really one of the first organizations to provide people with support for anything other than abstinence. As much as abstinence-only narratives dominate the recovery culture today, it was tenfold in the 90s and prior. People really didn't have many resources for anything other than abstinence. Moderation management offered people a breath of fresh air and really showed folks that learning to moderate is a possibility for many people, and abstinence is not the only path. So without further ado, as I said before, I am joined with Andrea Gregory Pain, the Executive Director of Moderation Management. Andrea, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So I'm a little familiar with moderation management already. Been in like some Facebook groups, read about it online. Never been to a meeting myself, but really like everything that I've heard so far. So I want to get into that in a little bit. But first, I'd like to just kind of get a little more information about you, kind of your personal background. How did you get involved in the recovery field and harm reduction in general?
Okay. All right. Well, I'll try to make it somewhere between the long version and the short version, but my background is in corporate relationship management in financial technology services. I worked in that field for several decades, and spent a lot of time wining and dining clients and going to conferences and at some point started personally feeling the effects of prolonged overuse of alcohol, I'd say. Certainly nothing traumatic, no half dead in a ditch or hauled off to jail stories for me at all, but knew that I needed to make some changes, and struggle as I might on a personal level, like to try and do it on my own. I realized I really needed some help and some support. I watched my mom join AA at the age of 80. And that was 13 years ago now. And I really saw her life transform, and not so much. I mean, certainly the health benefits of not drinking and the other benefits and so on. What I really noticed was the community connection and how that really gave her a sense of purpose in her life, and how much she enjoyed connecting with others around their similar issues. And I thought, gosh, I wish there was something like that didn't require that I stop drinking altogether. So I started doing some research, and I came across moderation management. At the time, there were only a smattering of in-person meetings, and only in the United States, and I'm located just outside of Toronto, Ontario.
Okay.
So there was nothing local to me, but I kept checking back to see if somebody had started. I think under Toronto in the meeting listings at that time, it said coming soon. So I was like really hoping that somebody was going to start a meeting in Toronto, and it never happened.
Pins and needles.
Pardon?
I said waiting on pins and needles. So.
Yeah. And literally that was over the course of a couple of years. Okay. Moderation management at that time had an online forum and a listserv, but neither one of those communities really resonated with me in terms of the kind of support that I was looking for, real interactive, and more real time.
Mm,
Uh, so eventually I noticed that they had started a Facebook group. And now that was a community that I thought that I could interact with some ease, and that was back in June of 2019, so I'm coming up to 6 years ago. It was
nice.
their very first Facebook group. It was only supposed to be for a month. It was called Moderation Month at the time, and it was just going to be a month long. Every day they would post a new moderation tool and start some conversation around it. They collected some prizes. They did some draws. I actually won the very first draw, and it was a keychain breathalyzer that I still have and still use.
That's
And
awesome.
um, but it gave me the opportunity to start to see how making small incremental changes in my habits around alcohol use could start to slowly empower me, to take control over this situation on my own, with the support, obviously, of my peers in the
Right.
group. So from there, I very quickly decided to start my own meeting in the Toronto area, which I did. Took a little while to build up some attendance. By the end of February in 2020, I had 3 or 4 people coming on a fairly consistent basis, and then the pandemic shut everything down. So no longer could we meet in person. And Moderation Management actually quickly reacted and set up Zoom meetings for any of the meeting facilitators who wanted to carry on their meetings via Zoom.
Nice.
So I did that, and uh, continued on as a volunteer facilitator. Then I got more involved with the operations team. Then I was asked to take on the role of program manager. That was probably back in 2021 or 2022. And then last year, March of 2024, our previous executive director stepped down, and I was asked to assume the role on an interim basis, but I have carried on since then. So that's my personal story and how I became involved with MM.
That's awesome. Yeah, you kind of got my first two questions all in one. So yeah, that's really awesome. My next question was going to be how'd you get involved with moderation management? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I loved it during when the pandemic did hit. I loved seeing all these different recovery communities kind of like waste no time at all and just convert everything, like really rally together and bring their community, keep the community together for people who
Yeah, for
really.
sure. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what when you in terms of like more traditional treatment, I know you said your mom was a member of AA and stuff like that. What is your kind of like personal thoughts on traditional treatment like 12-step programs and like the disease model of addiction? And does moderation management, do they take any stances on the disease model or just reaction to traditional treatment at all?
Yeah, we really try not to, because we recognize that there are a lot of options out there. And a lot
Right.
of people try a lot of different things before they land on the thing, the recovery thing that works for them and that feels
Right.
comfortable for them. So we really try not to create any, they do their thing, we do our thing. And we
Right.
feel that we serve a different portion of the recovery population, so to speak. And those are the people that feel like they need a little more autonomy. They need the power to make decisions around the path that they choose,
Hmm.
um, and how they get there.
Right.
And so I think the flexibility that we offer in terms of, hey, you know what, we're here to encourage you to make the changes that you need to make, because you wouldn't be here otherwise. So you decide what your future with alcohol looks like. It could be moderation, it could be some form of moderation, it could be within the guidelines if you want it to be, and it could be abstinence. But you decide, and you also get to change that outlook
Right.
at any given time. You don't have to commit to a particular outcome that you want to achieve. That changes all the time too. So I think that that's kind of what sets us apart is our, the non-prescriptiveness of what we do, which is, you get to choose. You choose your path, you choose your outcome, and we're here to support.
That's awesome. I love that type of like flexible kind of outlook because I think that's so important. People feel like they make this decision, and if they ever, have doubts about it in the future, then that's the end of the world or anything like that. Like they have to, like things are set in stone pretty much.
Mhm.
That's just not how human beings work. Usually, we change our minds.
Exactly.
Um, so cool. I really appreciate that. Um, I wanted to also just kind of, get your do you guys do anything like are people ever referred to you like court ordered to go to moderation management meetings or anything like that?
Um, People who are court ordered to go to support meetings, recovery support meetings, will often choose us
Gotcha.
as their uh, support provider of choice. Certainly, we are widely recognized as a viable support community for people who are struggling to overcome, previous behaviors. So we do get a lot of people that look for meeting attendance verifications, and we manage that on their behalf. Just make sure that we can validate that they were in the meeting. We can't validate to what extent they participated in each meeting,
Gotcha.
but the fact that they were there, that they showed up, we can validate it through Zoom. Makes us, an alternative choice for those who require validate, meeting attendance verifications.
Awesome. And yeah, I know I'm familiar. I do a lot of like smart recovery meetings. And I
Mhm.
know they had years ago they had talked about having like kind of a legal team that helped when people would run into issues where they were like court ordered specifically for 12 step, like they would it's
Mhm.
something where they would really, I don't know if it was the judge or just the state had certain guidelines where it in writing said 12 step, so they would have some people reach out to like a legal team or something. So saying, hey, we exist and we, can verify we're just as viable and legit as 12-step programs. So that's cool. That's good to know that, you guys are widely recognized like that.
And what we don't know is for every one person who does come to us for validations, how many others don't because they have been specifically court ordered to do 12
Right.
steps. So that's an interesting approach, is to make that available to those who prefer to have a choice, and we can walk um, the court through what it is that we do, so that they can validate that we're bona fide.
Legit. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, yeah, I think that's super important. So cool. Just on like a personal level and just your kind of work in moderation management and harm reduction in general, what would you say, especially just when you talk to people about, what you do with moderation management, what would you say is the most common misconception or misinformation that you hear about harm reduction or moderation, and how do you usually respond to it?
um, I, I guess maybe one of the major misconceptions is that moderation um, is enablement. It enables people to keep practicing the habit that has caused the harm in their lives.
Mm.
And what I tr- try to, I try to transform that narrative into, rather than enablement, we offer empowerment.
Mm.
And really what that means is that people are given the choice and the freedom to make a choice about their recovery, um, and that moderation is, um, by the definition of recovery, while it may or may not include the word moderation, it alludes to the fact that moderation is viable. It is the
Right.
cessation of heavy drinking and, sustained behavior changes that go along with that. So, whether you have a couple of drinks a week or whatever, the difference between heavy drinking and drinking that is not causing harm are two very different things, and that's what people aspire to, right? They're trying to avoid the negative impacts of
Right.
having alcohol in their lives, and that's what moderation offers. Don't get me wrong, sometimes moderation leads to long-term abstinence, and that's perfectly viable as well. It's a choice that people often come to after, realizing that moderation takes a lot of work, and that there
Mm,
are a lot of ups and downs, and there are successes and challenges, and that it really does require significant effort, particularly in the early days. As time goes on, the effort, it doesn't feel like as much work. It just becomes more natural to do the
mm,
planning and the counting and the measuring and the using of the tools and building strategies every time you're choosing um, to have a couple of drinks. But I think that that's really important, and something that we recognize and embrace. And so we have, a very strong sub community of we call them Absers, who have chosen abstinence as their long term outcome. So I hope
nice.
that answers your question.
Yeah,
Sometimes I get
definitely.
a
No,
tangent.
definitely. That's really important. Even just from my own personal experience, like I had kind of not going to any specific meetings. Smart Recovery kind of has opened the doors to harm reduction a little bit more in the past few years. But just from my own personal, I had done some experimentation with moderation and kind of realized I could do it. But like you said, realizing kind of the amount of effort that it takes, I was like, you know, I think my personal reasons for drinking were, at least when I was doing it unhealthily, was to kind of numb, was to kind of like run away from the whatever emotions I was feeling. Well, as I experimented with moderation, I was like, what? I don't know that I necessarily enjoy the moderate effects of alcohol. I'm not sure that that's the what I'm after. So I just, it seems a lot simpler for me just to not even pick up the first drink. But I know plenty of people who can change their relationship with alcohol and learn to moderate. And so I think
Mhm,
it's really important to have all these options out there.
for sure.
Does moderation management, is it focused on alcohol only? Is it open to other substances or behaviors?
Well, technically, we are alcohol based only.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that we can provide guidelines around moderate alcohol use. Um, Lots of government agencies around the world have developed moderate use guidelines for alcohol consumption. And they've changed over the years. Obviously, they come out with new guidelines all the time. MM's guidelines were established in the mid 90s, and they have stayed the same ever since. And we continue to embrace our guidelines as a way to at least give people, when they join us, something to aspire to. We no longer require that you must drink within these guidelines in order to be part of the group. We no longer require that somebody take 30 days off of drinking in order to get started on a path to moderation.
Okay.
We view both of those things as a potential outcome of the work that people do um, in moderation management. So we have those guidelines that are research based, and evidence backed up with evidence, and so on. We can't offer those guidelines for any other substance because there aren't
Gotcha.
any safe use guidelines available that we could provide as guidelines to anybody else in MM. Having said that, We have lots of people who struggle not just with alcohol use, but with other substance use, in particular cannabis. The two sort of seem to go hand in hand and have that, the same effect. We do not have a lot of hard drug users or anything beyond kind of alcohol and cannabis. And we really don't recommend that folks that are using other substances be part of our communities, more so because we just don't know how to support them. We
Gotcha.
don't have the tools. We don't have the evidence-based research to allow us to say here's what's here's what you can work towards. That said, from a cannabis use perspective in particular, all of the tools and the strategies that we share amongst ourselves in moderation management meetings and in our communities are very transferable to a lot of different addictive behaviors or problematic behaviors. Cannabis use, gambling, over shopping, overeating, all of those behaviors. The tools that we use are easily transferable. So there are some folks I know that are part of our communities who are mostly concentrated on cannabis use. We just can't really inform them in any other way other than alcohol use.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you kind of keep everything grounded in like the evidence that you have available at the time. So
Right.
makes sense. That's really good to know. If someone comes to your group and they are struggling with like opioids or something, do you have any kind of set referrals to other groups or anything? Any like things you stand by, or just like what would that process kind of be if somebody was looking for help with
Um,
opioids, another drug?
we I might direct them to like the Harm Reduction Alliance, those types of organizations. But from a peer support perspective, we do actually have a good working relationship with Smart Recovery.
Awesome.
And Smart does have a wider ranging, capacity to support other substance use. So from a peer support perspective, we usually would refer somebody to Smart for that.
Okay, cool. That answers my question. And this kind of, flows into some of the stuff we were talking about before, but what does like the moderation management model kind of look like? Like, I know you said, you don't really have the requirements anymore of like taking a 30-day break. You don't tell people whether or not, hey, moderation's not working out for you. Maybe you should try abstinence. Is there kind of a set, like with 12 steps, there's you do step 1, step 2, step 3. Is there really a process like that? Or what does the model really kind of look like?
We do, and this goes back several years, if not decades, but we do have a published 9 steps
Okay,
of
cool.
change. Um, we don't advertise it a lot, only because we don't want anybody to think that they have to follow any steps.
Gotcha.
We use it as are you wondering what this whole thing looks like? Here's kind of what we do. But, so our model is very, as I said, non-prescriptive. We
Right.
meet you where you're at, wherever you're at today. And that we know that the alcohol use disorder spectrum is wide and varied. And some people come to us and say, you know what, I have that one drink a day and it's driving me crazy. I just want to not have that one drink one day. So, that's kind of maybe one end of the spectrum. And then the other end of the spectrum is significant in terms of health impacts and risks and so on. But what we do is we meet everybody exactly where they're at. And we advocate for making small, manageable, achievable changes, or like setting achievable goals and making these small, manageable changes one little increment at a time. And I know for me personally, that made the world of difference, because thinking about taking 30 days off, in fact, I thought had the misconception that I had to start with 30 days in order to join moderation management, and it kept me away for a really long time. And it
Mm,
wasn't until I joined that Facebook group I thought, okay, they're not going to know
right.
whether I've taken 90 days or not, so I'm just going to join this Facebook group. And I learned in that group I don't have to do that right now. I
Right.
don't have to ever do it really if I don't want to. But, there are lots and lots of benefits of doing that. Once I started learning that I could make just small little changes, start from where I'm at and make little changes. Things like, instead of walking right in the door after work and going right to the fridge and pouring my first glass of wine,
Hmm.
I could do something else for an hour. I could walk the dog or weed the garden or have a bath or, any number of things that I could do for an hour. And that
Right.
hour gave me just a little more power over this whole situation. Oh,
Love
I can
that.
do this. Okay, I'm going to put this off for an hour. That makes me feel stronger and more in control. And so that was just, the first tiny step that I took. And so that's what we do, is encourage people. And so we can't say step one is this, because everybody is at a different spot when they come to us. So maybe step one
Right.
looks different for everybody. Um, but, fundamentally, moderation management is rooted in, what we would do is that if people just know that they're drinking too much, but they don't really have a handle on what those numbers are, we would
Mm,
recommend, before you even start making any changes, take some inventory of how much you're drinking. Log it for a week or 2 weeks or a month, and then start deciding how you want to make changes to that data, to the numbers that you have in front of you. And sometimes those numbers really set you back on your heels when you add them up in terms of a standard drink. um, so it's kind of the place to start, and then from there, how do you move that needle? And you need to plan, you need to count, you need to measure, you need to be real, you need accountability. And those are all the things that we offer. So it's really rooted in going forward, having a plan for the week, but also a real granular plan for each and every drinking opportunity that you step into. And formulating that plan in advance and finding some accountability for that plan is really what leads to success. And that plan can be, all right, I'm only going to have 3 drinks tonight, but I'm going to be there for 5 hours. So how am I going to make sure that I only have 3 drinks in 5 hours? Well, I'm going to make each of those drinks last an hour. And in between, I'm going to have a glass of water that's going to last an hour. Maybe that's a plan. Um, some people, we have little tricks like wristbands. You can use hair ties or elastic bands, or a lot of guys will use coins in one pocket, and after each drink, you take an elastic band off of one wrist, put it on the other wrist, and when all the bands are moved over, you're done for the night. So if you're going to bomb through the first 3 drinks, it's going to be a long night afterwards, unless
yeah.
you learn to stretch it out. So different little tools and tricks and strategies. And our meetings in our communities are all rooted in not telling people what to do, but in sharing what's worked for us. So
Got-
we're all members, we've all been here, we've all gone around the block. This is what has worked for me. And we refrain from giving advice or telling people what they need to do. We simply say, this is something that's worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you too. And that's where people get to kind of pick and choose what their strategies are going to be. So it's very open-ended. Um, it's very flexible. And that is really one of our guiding principles, is flexibility. And I think that's what makes our approach really attractive to some people.
That's awesome. I love that. And yeah, that's one of the reasons that I looked into you guys in the first place. My background is like I said, smart recovery, and in the last year I've done a lot of trainings with REBT, which is rational emotive behavior therapy, and
Mhm.
flexibility is a staple. It's like being rational means being flexible. So I love the flexible aspect of it. I love the non-prescriptiveness of it.
Mhm.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but one thing my mentor always talks about is like a lot of, like you had mentioned earlier, a lot of folks who try moderation for an extended period of time, a percentage of them choose abstinence after so long. And
Mhm.
he had some numbers surrounding that, but he was saying like, a lot of these same people, when it's prescribed, when they go into a treatment center or they go into a group and they're told, hey, it's either abstinence or you're in denial. Well, a lot of times they'll just kind of walk out the door because they're being told what to do. But when you kind of leave it open, going like, hey, you get to choose your own goals, a lot of those people who might have just, walked out the door in the first place, actually, as time goes on, do choose abstinence. Or, even if they don't, they're obviously finding a healthier way to deal with their issues. So yeah, I think that's awesome.
Definitely.
Um, One thing, so if what impacts have you seen in people's lives and society overall, from moderation management or just harm reduction efforts in general? What kind of stands out? Sure, you've got a good number of different individuals who've shown
Um,
some improvement, but yeah, what keeps you passionate about this?
wow. Oh, so many success stories, and just seeing the look on newcomers' faces. We have four newcomers meetings a month, two daytime ones and two evening ones, and in those meetings as well. And we don't require that people go to a newcomers meeting before they go to any other meeting. So
Mhm.
I do the Tuesday night 7 p.m. meeting, 7 p.m. Eastern meeting called the Reflections meeting. And that was my local Toronto person to person meeting originally. And I just, same date, same time, and I just converted it to Zoom all those years ago. Um,
Nice.
and so we still get newcomers on a regular basis where it's their first meeting, and just seeing the look on their faces when they realize, wow, I can do this. I can take control of this, because the
Right.
prospect of stopping altogether is just way too daunting for too many
Mhm.
people. Statistics show of the 30 million people in the United States that identify as having alcohol use disorder, less than 10% of them seek any kind of help.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because the prevailing perception is that in order getting help means stopping, and
Right.
people don't want to have to stop. So when they come to our meetings and realize, no, you know what, I can figure this out. I can gradually reduce, and I can maybe just learn to have a few enjoyable drinks per week. And that's really what most of us want, right? We enjoy drinking for the ritual, for the taste, for the social, camaraderie that it often brings, and we just want to be able to go out for dinner and have a lovely glass of wine with a nice, plate of pasta or a juicy steak or something like that,
Right.
without having all of the negative consequences of all of the other drinks in between all of that. So,
Right.
just seeing people say, wow, you know what, I can do this. I know I can do this. That's what keeps me going. And the countless success stories that we hear day after day of people who have moved themselves along that spectrum from, a point of really having damaged relationships or affected their work or, health issues, all of that, and being able to kind of move themselves down to a lower end of that spectrum where they don't have those issues in their lives anymore. They've regained the trust of their families, and they've been able to retain work or get that promotion they were hoping for. Just so many wonderful success stories. It's always inspiring.
I love that. That's awesome. And it really seems like it's like putting some power back in people's hands or just showing them that they have more power than they realized. I think that's
Right.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um If you're comfortable sharing, what does your relationship with moderation look like today?
Um, I would say I've always used the guidelines as my aspirations. So I've always aspired to have 2 to 3 days off of drinking and to drink no more than 9 drinks per week within the guidelines. Usually I'm at least 2 days alcohol free and somewhere between 10 and 12 drinks a week maybe, but since January that number's been much lower. I'm much more towards 3 and 4 days alcohol free, and the days that I do drink, I never drink more than 3 drinks at once. So it's peaceful, it's balanced, there's no conflict, inner conflict with myself, where my toddler brain or lizard brain or whatever you want, little prefrontal cortex here is not trying to convince me otherwise. I really do feel like I've got my power back over my drinking, whereas 6 years ago, I really felt like I lost that power.
Mm,
So it's comfortable, and it's just nice to know that, and it's not just me. Thousands and thousands of people have found that same kind of peace and balance in their lives, and still be able to have a few drinks here and there.
that's beautiful. Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that. So, if people, anyone listening or just someone who's either looking for help or just wants to get involved with moderation management, how can they get involved with moderation management?
Our website is moderation.org. Our three main areas of support, or ways to gain support, are through our online meetings. We have 30 online meetings a week, give or take, 30, 31, somewhere around there, depending on where the newcomers meetings fall in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they are open to anyone. Our meeting calendar includes a link to click through to join the meeting when the meeting starts. And I think most people find the most support from those online meetings, for sure. We also have a very large and vibrant private Facebook group. Although it's less intimate because of its size.
Right.
We have a couple of subgroups. We have our Absters Facebook group. We also have a subgroup called by the Book Streakers. So those are folks who are really intently focused on drinking by the book, and keeping up a streak of being by the book week after week. So that's
Gotcha.
sort of a smaller sub community. So if Facebook is your jam, then you've got lots of options there. We also offer online courses
Okay.
through our alternate website, which you can reach through moderation.org, but it's called moderationmonth.org. And we have 3 introductory courses, kind of to help. They're called Kickstart courses, so they're to help people kickstart their moderation journey. We have Kickstart Moderation. We have Miles for Moderation, which is where you can combine fitness goals with moderation, drinking in moderation goals. And then we've just recently launched Kickstart Zero Proof, which is a 30-day program to help somebody get through 30 days without drinking.
It's awesome.
So they are by requested donation to join the programs, or to have access to the programs. We never turn anyone away, though, so there's always the option to ask for financial assistance. But we are also almost entirely member funded.
Nice.
So we subsist. We have a very, very slim budget, like a tenth of Smart Recoveries,
Hmm.
um, and a 100th of AAs. So we have a tiny, tiny little budget that we use to keep the lights on and the doors open. And we have 3 part-time staff members. That's it. They do all of the marketing. We have a volunteer that does all of our treasury work. We have an outside bookkeeper that we hire. We have a program manager who helps us with those online programs, but also keeps all of our communities up and running and supports our volunteers. And we are run by a board of directors, governed by a board of directors that are made up of clinicians, therapists, authors, academics, and other types that have a passion for the work that we do, and a background that brings experience to the table for us. So that's who we are, and we would love to open our doors to more and more people. 2025 for us, our objective is awareness, creating more awareness, and just inviting more people in the door to join our communities and meetings, and we look forward to doing that. So we appreciate the opportunity to be a part of your podcast too, and hopefully be a source of support for many, many more.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me. I mean, I think the work that you guys are doing is totally invaluable. Can't even put a price on it. And people just really need to, it's something that people should know about. I thought there was something else I was going to say, and now I'm blanking on it. Are there any books, talks, videos, social media handles, anything that you'd like to plug while you're here?
The handbook for moderation management has always been responsible drinking. Martha Sanchez and al. Again, written in the mid 90s, and it kind of formed the basis of the moderation management approach, and it's still our go-to. It's written in a handbook form, a workbook form, so that you can actually articulate your responses in writing. We have a book corner on our website with lots and lots and lots of recommended reading, and we do find that many people take advantage of the links that we offer there. We're on social media. We have a wonderful partnership with Sunnyside, which is a moderate drinking app, basically.
Okay, cool.
And kind of AI driven, but it gives you the opportunity to put your plan into an online app that you can access from your phone every day. It gives you a prompt. This is your plan for today. Let's work on achieving this together. What are your strategies? And but they do have live coaches as well. So that's
Nice.
if you're struggling beyond what the AI bot can offer, you can just simply ask to speak to a coach. So Sunnyside has been a partner of ours for many years, and we really value our relationship with them. Our other partner is Or Health, and they offer online access to naltrexone prescriptions.
Awesome.
So medically assisted moderation is becoming much more widely recognized and embraced by the medical community.
Great.
So lots and lots of resources our website has to offer, and yeah.
That's cool. That sounds great. I didn't know about the courses that you guys offered as well, and the Sunnyside app. That sounds amazing. Get some one-on-one help from coaches and AI and stuff. So yeah, that sounds great. Well, Andrea, thank you so much for joining me. I hope if we end up doing this long term, I'd like to have you back on at some point, and kind of catch up, see what moderation management is up to in the future. But again, thank you so much. I think the work y'all are doing is just can't put a price on it. I think it's just it's something that, we really want to spread the word about as well. And just keep doing what you're doing.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation to be here today and the opportunity to chat with you today, Jack. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Andrea. This has been an episode of the Rational Harm Reduction podcast. If you're interested in volunteering to participate and come on as a guest to talk about any mental health issues that you're currently struggling with or would like some feedback or guidance on, you can find us on Facebook at Rational Harm Reduction, or you can email us at rationalharmreduction@gmail.com. Thank you all for listening, and stay safe out there.